What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a viewer requested video. Shout out to Coach K of the Thunderbirds of the Relocation Football League for suggesting this video. We're going to analyze whether tall players run faster than short players here in Madden 20. Now, what's the reason behind doing this video? I've heard from a couple different people that they believe that taller players in Madden 20, if all things are held the same, run slower than short players in the same game. And so what we're going to do here today is we are going to go through and test a whole bunch of wide receivers that I have selected to this team and put on this roster to compete against each other. What we've done is, first and foremost, we have leveled the playing field. We have given every single one of these players 90 in every single category that they can have on offense. Now, obviously, I can't edit some of these things on some of these players, like throw power, short accuracy. I could take the time to go in and do those, but they do not affect those positions, so I did not edit those. I edited everything that is available to edit for a wide receiver in the game to a 90 so that every single one of these players has the same exact stats on offense. Now, why did I do this? This is to show you a control, to show you that everything is held the same, and the only variables between these players are their height and weight. Now, what did I do in terms of their height and weight? I wanted to keep things a little bit consistent. I didn't want to just take players and edit their height and weight to see if that made a difference, because I think that could be flawed, because as we have discussed in previous videos, certain players are programmed to play better than other players in the game. So if I were to take a guy that just is pre-programmed to run super fast as a 5'8" type of player and make him 6'8", then it could present a problem. So what I did was I took players at their base height and weight, I left their height and weight the same, and I just found guys that could represent what I'm trying to do here. So we picked some tall, heavy players, a guy like Kelvin Benjamin that's 6'5", 245. He's about as big as you can get for a wide receiver. And then we took a taller, skinnier player like Tyrell Williams, who is 6'4", 205, so 40 pound difference. In comparison, we picked a guy in the middle in Terrell Pryor, who is 6'4", 228, and then we picked Juju, who is in the middle at 6'1", 215, as kind of more of a control player, the average height, average weight of a receiver to compare against. And then we took Ryan Switzer, who is 5'8", who is reasonably short for this position, only 5'8", 185 pounds, and I figured we wouldn't be complete if we didn't also include a short, heavy player. And I figured the best way to do this without editing somebody's height and weight is to simply take Roosevelt Nix, who is a relatively short player at 5'11", 248 pounds, and throw him in there to kind of compare against Ryan Switzer. I know that there is still a bit of a height difference there, so this is not a perfect example, but I think that we get a good range of heights and weights here for you guys to see whenever we go into practice mode, to put these guys on straight up streaks, straight up verticals, and compare their running speeds against each other. Now, this took quite a bit of time, quite a bit of effort, so please like this video down below if this is something you guys want to see more of, or if you're going to enjoy this type of content. And let's go ahead and jump into practice mode. We're going to do offense only, and we're going to run these guys on streaks and compare whether anybody, if anybody, is particularly faster than anybody else. So let's go ahead to practice mode. We're going to pick offense only, ready up, and then we're going to jump into it. So I want to try to compare not only the tall players versus the short players, but I also want to compare the heavy players versus the light players, because I figure, you know, what is this test going to be if we don't also compare the weight of these players, because this has been a subject of debate for some time now. So let's go ahead and compare guys like Kelvin Benjamin that are 6'5" to guys like Ryan Switzer that are 5'8", and see if there is any difference. So on our control play, actually, let me go ahead and fix the depth chart, because there are specific guys that I want to start with here. The first guys that I want to start with on the depth chart, number one, I want to have Kelvin Benjamin up here, because he is the definition of a big, huge target receiver, jump ball receiver. He's traditionally slow, but as you guys can see, we evened everybody's stats out. So he is 6'5", 245, and we want him to be going up against Ryan Switzer here. And then we will throw in Juju Smith-Schuster as the, what do I want to call it, the control type of player. And that is how we're going to run with this. So let's go ahead and pick a verticals play and see if any of these guys run faster. Now we will run them through a couple times just to see a difference. I did test this slightly on my own already, and truth be told, the results were not all that surprising to me. So let's go ahead, we'll put Juju, Switzer, and Benjamin on a vertical. We will put Samuels and McDonald on curls so that they are not involved in this competition. We're just going to run the play, and I'll lob the ball up just to finish it off. And here's exactly what we're going to compare. Let me show you guys how we're going to do this. So if I press pause and go to replay, once the play is done there, we go to instant replay. We're going to go from a sideline perspective. So we first have to compare where is everybody lined up. So Kelvin Benjamin, and I believe this would be Juju, are lined up on the line of scrimmage. Ryan Switzer is lined up 2 yards back. So if these players all run at the same speed, Juju and Kelvin Benjamin should cross the goal line at the same time, and Ryan Switzer should cross the goal line 2 yards, or he should be 2 yards behind whenever those guys cross the goal line. So let's go ahead and run the play and see how it goes. As you guys can see, they are running perfectly stride for stride with each other. I would even say Kelvin Benjamin wins this race because he gets a foot ahead of Juju Smith-Schuster. So right off the bat, I'm seeing that Kelvin Benjamin has no speed disadvantage to the control Juju Smith-Schuster, and what you guys will see is Ryan Switzer is exactly 2 yards behind the goal line, finishing exactly where he started in comparison to these other receivers. So that is just one play. Let me go ahead and run it at least 1 or 2 more times just to prove that that is the case, and then we'll start mixing in some of the other guys and do some one-on-one comparisons just to see if weight might factor into anything, or if maybe height does continue to factor into things whenever we run this a few times in a row. So let's go ahead to the instant replay one more time here. Same things, same conditions, and you guys will see the play turned out to be exactly the same. Kelvin Benjamin comes across with a foot ahead of Juju in the exact same position. Juju about to cross the goal line, both stride for stride with each other, and Ryan Switzer, his foot is perfectly 2 yards behind that of Juju Smith-Schuster and Kelvin Benjamin. So what I'm seeing here on a straight line basis, these players are running the exact same speed regardless of their height. Let's run it one more time just to be certain. Put those 3 players on streaks and run it one more time, just to be sure that everything is held exactly the same. And then once we do that, like I said, we'll go ahead and mix in some of the chunkier players, the guys that are a little bit bigger versus the guys that are a little bit thinner, and see what happens there. And you guys will see that this finishes literally exactly the same as it did the first 2 times, with Kelvin Benjamin's foot crossing the line ahead of Juju Smith-Schuster, who is in the exact same stance, exact same position, with Ryan Switzer finishing 2 yards behind in yet again the exact same position. So what I want to say is, if the theory was correct that shorter players run faster than taller players in this game, with all things held the same, Ryan Switzer would have probably caught up to these guys, or at least gained some amount of ground on them, if not past them, but he did not. He remained 2 yards behind 6'1" Juju Smith-Schuster, who is 3 inches, 5'8". Was Switzer 5'8"? 5'8", so 5 inches taller, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Kelvin Benjamin, who's almost a full foot taller than Ryan Switzer, is finishing pretty much in the exact same spot. So let's go ahead to the depth chart and run a couple of different matchups. So now that we have kind of validated that receivers run at the same speed based on their height, let's compare some of these guys that are around the same height, their differences in weight. So number 1 and number 2, I want to compare CJ Anderson and Ryan Switzer. We move CJ Anderson to wide receiver. He's 225 pounds at 5'8" versus Ryan Switzer, who is He's 185 pounds at 5'8", and we'll go ahead and throw in Roosevelt Nix here, who is slightly taller, but 248 pounds, and we will see if there's any difference between short guys that have different weights, and this should give us a good idea of whether weight plays a factor in how fast a player runs in the game or not, and then we'll go with the tall players and compare them as well. This one is just another play exactly the same as it was before, so we have to let it reset to get the other players on the field. Why is it not... Did I not save the depth chart the way that I thought I did? Maybe it's because of the slot wide receiver depth chart. Switzer, Anderson, Nix. So slot wide receiver is probably popping up as somebody else. We'll put it as Anderson, Switzer, and Nix, and then hopefully that will reset it. And like I said, we'll run it that way. Just finish this play, and hopefully we can get the right guys on the field this time. All right, Anderson, Nix, and Switzer. Let's see if the short guys who are different weight classes run the same speed or not. Let's just go ahead, lob the football up. And I'm not going to run this one for 3 or 4 times in a row because I trust that the outcome is going to be pretty much the same. Let's go to instant replay and go with a sideline view once again. Ryan Switzer obviously up on the line of scrimmage with CJ Anderson and Roosevelt Nix trailing behind. So let's see if these guys end up in the same positions when they cross the goal line. And yes, so they're crossing the goal line, and it's actually interesting that it's the same exact positions. This is one of the things that is surprising to me, is that every single time I run this play, it finishes with the receiver on the left crossing the goal line first with their left foot. It's just something interesting to note. I don't know why that is. Probably the way that the game is coded. But Ryan Switzer crossing the goal line, CJ Anderson crossing the goal line pretty much at the same time that he is. And guess what? Roosevelt Nix finishing exactly 2 yards behind the 2 receivers that are in front of him. If anything, I would even argue that Roosevelt Nix gained a half a yard on these guys. So if anything, the argument might be that the heavier you are, the faster you run. Now, I don't believe that there's any credit to that, so maybe we'll run this one more time just to make sure. But it appears as though these guys are finishing in the exact same positions as they did, or as they were whenever we started. So let's run it one more time, just to be clear, and then I'll do the comparison between the tall receivers to see if their weight has any difference on anything. Let's go ahead and view this replay, and then we can go ahead and edit the depth chart one more time, and we should be good to go. View this one last time here, and it finishes exactly the same with Ryan Switzer's left foot crossing the line, CJ Anderson right behind him, and Roosevelt Nix this time is, yeah, I would say 2 yards behind, a little less than 2 yards behind, which is interesting that he's slightly gaining ground on those guys. That's an interesting thing to me. I don't know what might be causing that. He's certainly running this route fast, like the most minuscule amount quicker, I think, than Ryan Switzer was. Or maybe it's just different because the stride length for Kelvin Benjamin was longer, so it appeared like he was further ahead in stride. But what I will say is that the evidence here is showing that nobody is running faster than anybody else. So let's go ahead, edit the depth chart one more time to be the tall receivers compared against each other in their weight classes. So we're going to go with Terrell Pryor, Tyrell Williams, and Kelvin Benjamin. These 3 wide receivers standing at 6'5", 245, 6'4", 205, and 6'4", 228. Let's go ahead to the slot wide receiver depth chart and edit them in as appropriate, and we will go from there. Terrell Pryor and Tyrell Williams. Let's go ahead and run this play to reset it. And we will line these guys up for one last test, just to confirm my suspicion that there is no difference between these players in terms of how fast they actually run their routes. I threw that one a little bit early. Let me go ahead and just run it one more time, because that rat catch animation could make things differ. Just want to let it run, and then lob it. All right, let's see if these guys crossed the goal line in the same way that the other guys did. Instant replay here. View it from the left side. So, lined up on the line of scrimmage, we have Terrell Pryor Sr. Lined up on the line of scrimmage on this side, Kelvin Benjamin, and 2 yards behind him is Tyrell Williams. So, with all stats being held the same, what do you guys think the result will be? Let's zoom out a little bit and follow them all the way downfield and see that actually this is the first time Kelvin Benjamin, or rather I guess the slot wide receiver, has crossed the goal line first, but by the slightest amount. So I'm thinking there might be something to the theory that certain players are coded to play a certain way, because every time Kelvin Benjamin has run this play, he has crossed the goal line just that slight inch or two faster than everybody else. Now, obviously, these guys are finishing at the same time. Kelvin Benjamin up here crossing the goal line, Terrell Pryor crossing the goal line, and surprise, surprise, Tyrell Williams is finishing exactly, and actually slightly less than 2 yards behind everybody else. So, I would say that there is no credible evidence to suggest that taller players run any slower than short players in Madden 20. In addition to that, I would suggest that there is no credence to suggest, or there's no credence in the fact, I don't know what I'm saying right now, that weight matters at all in how fast a player runs in the game. You could be 245 pounds like Kelvin Benjamin, and you are still going to run just as fast as the 205-pound Tyrell Williams or the 220-pound Terrell Pryor Sr. I think that we've done a pretty solid job here of comparing these things. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Hopefully I kind of proved an argument wrong that a lot of people have. I think that this is probably the cleanest argument for it. Now, there are some different little quirks that you could get into in terms of their route running and their change of direction, because there is an argument to be had that taller, bulkier players don't change direction as well as shorter, shiftier type players. So if that's something that you guys maybe want us to do a video on, we could possibly consider doing a video on that, but it might be a little bit difficult. Like I said, this video took a lot of effort to get all these guys' stats to where they need to be equal with each other to compare them. So leave a like on this video if you enjoyed this content, if it helped you out in some way. Comment down below with what you guys would like to see next. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys have a good night. I'll see you guys in the next video.